Keenan Allen trade talks heating up. Davante Adams has told the Raiders that he wants to be traded, and the NFC North is the best division in football. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back into the Bears Den, an NFL podcast with the Chicago Bears Focus. I'm your host, Alex, and today it's Tuesday, October 1st. Happy October, the best month of the year, in my opinion. We got a couple things that I really want to talk about today and discuss. First off, there's some talks going on about Keenan Allen potentially being traded, teams potentially reaching out. Obviously, we know the Chiefs just lost. They've lost Hollywood Brown for the year, and then it's looking like Rashee Rice is going to be done with torn ACL that was, caused by Mahomes actually hitting him in the leg on an interception that he threw. So the Chiefs obviously looking to be the first team in history to three-peat in the Super Bowl era, at least, and they need some receiver help for sure. And so, how could they potentially get that receiver help? I don't think that they're going to get Davante Adams. I think that would be an extremely stupid decision from the Raiders to trade Davante Adams in the division. So I don't see that happening. But Keenan Allen, I've seen some talks heat up a little bit on sports Twitter and the media about how, if the Bears could maybe package him with Khalil Herbert, maybe they could bring in like a star guard, or they could obviously get better draft picks for this upcoming draft. How do I feel about trading Keenan Allen? I think if we were to get anything better than a fourth round pick, I would do it. But I think if we get a fourth round pick back or anything like that, I don't think that it's worth it. Based on just pure draft capital. If we were to pair him with like Khalil Herbert, who I think is a great running back, but we're not really using him this year, and we were able to bring in like an elite offensive lineman or an all-pro guard, I would do that trade in a heartbeat, because I think that, if we could shore up this offensive line, that would really, really help enable Caleb's growth and development. And I think that we would really see the offensive scheme and the team flourish. But I also think that Keenan Allen brings a ton of value both on and off the field. I think that, he's able to get open. As Caleb said, he's able to get open in a phone booth. Caleb has found him a couple times this season. Obviously, Keenan's only played, 2 games basically. And, but I also think that he just brings a lot of veteran leadership and information and teaching ability to our rookie quarterback and to our rookie receiver in Rome Odunze. I think that kind of gets overlooked by the fans and the media as well. He's not just there helping Caleb develop, he's helping Rome develop as well. I think that there's a lot of value with Keenan Allen being on the team, and he was injured a couple games last year, and he still had a career year last year. So I think that, the offense isn't where they want to be yet, but I think as the year progresses and they progress as an offense, he's going to become much more involved, and I think he's going to bring some value. So it just kind of depends, what would they be able to get for him. The trade deadline's just a little bit over a month away, and so maybe they could get a team that's kind of desperate, that needs some receiver help. But what we get in return would have to be pretty significant, in my opinion. With that being said, Davante Adams today has told the Raiders that he wants to be traded. I think that we kind of saw this coming, right? I think that once, like he picked Vegas because he wanted to go play with Derek Carr, and once they kind of shipped Derek Carr out of there, it's pretty obvious that like he didn't want to be there anymore. And the team is not fantastic by any means. They're 2-2, but he's definitely, probably a Hall of Fame receiver, in my opinion. I've watched him destroy the Bears for years. And, now it's just kind of a matter of fact of like, okay, who's going to go get him? Who's going to try and get him? I could see Dallas potentially getting on the phone and trying to pair, him across from CeeDee Lamb. I think that would be pretty dangerous. I think New York, the Jets, could potentially get on the phone and, try and pair him up with with Aaron Rodgers, excuse me. I definitely could see Aaron Rodgers on, talking to the front office and really trying to lobby for that. I think that would really make the Jets even more explosive, because then you have Garrett Wilson and you have Davante Adams and you have Breece Hall. Um, like I said, I don't think he's going to go to the Chiefs. Could potentially see him coming back to like the NFC North. I had this thought earlier that maybe Detroit could get on the phone and try and get him. They've got a decent receiving core, obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, but I think if you put Davante Adams in there, that's like it's a very lethal room. And then other than that, I'm not really too sure where he would go. There's a lot of teams that are loaded. Buffalo could potentially get on the phone, right? They don't have Stephon Diggs, but I'm not sure if they would want to give up the any draft picks or pieces for Davante Adams. So there's a couple of teams where he can go. It's going to be interesting to see. Um, I hope that he doesn't come to the NFC North again. I have a lot of faith that if we were to have to play against him twice a year, we have Tyreek Stevenson and Jalen Johnson who would be able to lock him down and be fine. But he's always one of those guys where it's like in crunch time, in huge moments, he's always open and getting the ball. So you know, it's nice that I hope that he gets traded. I always like watching great receivers be able to perform and win, and I don't think that's happening in Vegas. I think that his talent and the back end of his career is being wasted. I just hope that he doesn't come and really burn the Bears. And with that being said, I wanted to talk a little bit about the NFC North because this is clearly the best division football through 4 weeks. You have 2-2 the 2-2 Packers, the 2-2 Bears, Detroit, which I'm blanking on their record, like 2-2 and 3-1. They're 3-1, and then you have Minnesota, who's obviously 4-0. So this division is wild. I think like when we look at Green Bay, right? Like I think you know Green Bay's Green Bay and the Bears are kind of in the same spot for me right now, where it's kind of like okay, two solid weeks and two not so solid weeks. So it's like what are these teams? Who are they, right? And I don't think they necessarily know yet. Um, Obviously, in both the losses for both of the Packers and the Bears, they're both one-score games. Green Bay obviously dropped the game in Brazil against Philly, and then they lost by 2 points to Minnesota this week at home, right? So those, they're a score away from being 4-0, right? And the Bears are a score from being 4-0 as well, right? So I think that, it's like as these teams progress and the year goes on, I expect both of these teams to be better and be stronger, and both teams are improving. And obviously, with Green Bay, Jordan Love, he's going to come back, right? Like I think, I predicted for him to take a step back this season. I think that he will. But I don't think that people can go after him for his performance this past week. He's coming off the MCL injury. He missed 2 weeks, and he still threw for a ton of yards and 4 touchdowns. So it's like, if he can get back to cleaning up his game, they'll be fine. But they've got some tough opponents coming up in the Rams, who took Detroit to overtime, who was a one-score loss against the Bears, and then they've got Arizona and Houston coming up. So it's like this team could potentially lose all those games. I don't think they will. I see them probably going at the worst 2-1 out of that stretch. I think that they'll lose to Houston, but I think that they'll be able to probably squeak past the Rams, and then they should be able to beat the Cardinals. So, if they go 2-1 here, they're going to be 4-3. It's not too bad, right? Um, And we look at the Bears schedule, obviously, if you're a Bears fan watching this channel, you know it, but the next 3 games is Carolina, Jacksonville, and Washington. I think the Bears are going to win all 3 of those games. There's a bye week in between after the Jags game, so, we'll see. But, I think that the Bears could easily be 4-2 here in 2 weeks and looking good and feeling pretty good. And I just think, kind of like what I was saying with Green Bay, with the Bears, it's just what team are you going to get? What offense are you going to get? Are you going to get the week 1 and week 2 offense? Or are you going to get the week 3 and week 4 offense, right? So, I would like to think that the Bears are going to continue improving, right? Like Shane Waldron, the Bears offensive coordinator this past week, found what worked and then the team comes out Sunday against Carolina and goes back to what wasn't working, I'm going to be furious. I'm going to be pissed, right? And that possibility, that could happen, right? I've seen that all the time. But I just think that, um, as long as they keep improving and building and building, I think this team should be 4-2, 5-2 after 3 weeks, which would be absolutely fantastic with Ricky Quarterback. And then, as we look forward to the top two teams in the division, Detroit and Minnesota. Detroit obviously last night came off a huge win against the undefeated Seahawks at the time. Jared Goff had 100% completion percentage, had a receiving touchdown, excuse me. And, it's like Detroit's looked pretty good this year, right? They dominated overtime against the Rams, just went right down the field. Had a rough loss at home against Tampa. That's probably a game that I think that, the team and the fans would want back. And then, beat Arizona in a one-score game, and then, 2-score game against undefeated Seattle. So it was like they're kind of finding their stride, but they've got a tough 2 games coming up. Looking at their next 3 weeks, they've got Dallas, they've got Minnesota, and then they have the Titans, who are one of the worst teams in the league. But they got their first win last night, so um, but this is a team that could potentially be 5-2 after the next 3 games. Uh, I could see them potentially beating Dallas as well, or I see them beating Dallas. I think they'll probably lose to Minnesota, but Detroit's looking pretty good this year. I projected that they would take a step back this year. So far they look pretty decent, right? And then obviously the biggest surprise of the year is Minnesota, right? 4-0, they look like the best team in the league, one of the best teams in the league. I mean, week 1 they destroyed the Giants, and I was like, okay, like good win. But it's the Giants, right? So, we got to take it with a grain of salt. And then they beat San Francisco, and then they destroyed Houston, and then they just, were up 28-0 against Green Bay. And it's like, okay, this team is real. And it's like the NFC North has 3 of like the best coaches in the league. Like obviously Andy Reid is the best coach in the league, right? Sean McVay's up there. Kyle Shanahan's up there. Mike Tomlin's up there. But then you look at Kevin O'Connell with what he's doing in Minnesota. Obviously, we know what Matt LaFleur is, and then we know what Dan Campbell is, right? And then, of course, we have Matt Eberflus. Great. But with that being said, Matt Eberflus is a fantastic defense coach, right? Like the Bears have a championship-level defense, but the offense isn't great, right? But anyways, Minnesota, 4-0, they look fantastic. They're not just beating teams, they're destroying teams, right? They let Green Bay kind of get back into it, which, maybe is concerning, right? I don't know how Vikings fans feel. If you're a Vikings fan, let me know down below how you feel about letting Green Bay back into that game. But I think that's pretty standard, right? Like, it's pretty rare that divisional games get out of hand like that, and I think that's kind of what Green Bay does in divisional games. Sometimes they'll just fall behind early, and then they'll claw their way back. And props to Minnesota for closing the game out, because as a Bears fan, I've been watching those games against Green Bay where we go out to a huge lead and then we manage to blow it, right? 2018 week 1, for example. But looking at Minnesota's next 3 games, they've got the Jets, which, what Jets team are you going to get? Are you going to get this past week's Jets team where they lost to 60 passing yards, Bo Nix? Or are you going to get the Jets team that, looks not terrible? Then they've got the Lions, and then they've got the Rams, right? So a couple tough games there. I could see them potentially dropping 1. I don't think Minnesota's going to go undefeated. But looking at their schedule, like it's like they could go undefeated. Like Jets, Lions, Rams, Colts, Jaguars, Titans, Bears, Cardinals, Falcons, Bears, Seahawks, Packers, Lions. Like they could go undefeated, right? If they get through this stretch of like the Rams and the Lions and the Vikings. But I just think with how tough this division is, I don't think they're going to go undefeated. I think the Bears are going to split at least. I think that probably Detroit would split as well. And looking, if Green Bay gets back to what they were last year, I think they'll probably split as well. But it's been a crazy sequence of events. Just saw some Rappaport tweets, just making sure that Davante Adams wasn't like traded or something while I was recording this. They've been good. The division is looking very strong, and it's really going to come down, I think, to the final weeks of the season this year to kind of figure out who's going to win this division. I don't necessarily see, any one of these teams pulling away, right? Just looking through like the rest of the schedule, like all these teams have tough games down the road. Like we know the Bears have the NFC North gauntlet towards the end of the season, right? Like the Bears don't play any North opponents until week 11. So then they have all 6 of those games in those final 7 weeks, or final 8 weeks. And it's just, the Packers, they've got some tough games. San Francisco in there, right? A lot of divisional games. They've got Houston to go. We discussed that. Detroit's got San Francisco in there. They've got Buffalo in there, Houston, right? So there's some tough games for each of these teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But it's absolutely clear that the NFC North is the best division in the league so far. So as always, I appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. Like, comment, subscribe. Really helps push out these videos. Trying to grow this channel. We're trying to hit 100 subscribers. It really would mean the world to me if we could do that. And with that being said, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Bear down as always, and we'll see you in tomorrow's video. Peace.